Ma'am, step out of the vehicle. License and documentation.
I'm heading to work. I'm already running late.
Work? Where exactly do you work?
The federal courthouse, downtown.
Huh. Okay, sure. You clean there or something?
No, I don't clean. Here's my ID.
Save it. Hands on the hood. Now, you're making this very...
A silver car pulls up to a checkpoint on Highway 78. It is 7:42 in the morning. A woman in business clothes sits behind the wheel. Her black robes hang in the back seat. She is on her way to work. Agent Torres walks up to the window. "Ma'am, step out of the vehicle. License and documentation." "I'm heading to work," she says. "I'm already running late." "Work? Where exactly do you work?" "The federal courthouse, downtown." Torres laughs. Okay, sure, you clean there or something." "No, I don't clean. Here's my ID." "Save it, hands on the hood, now." "Please, if you just look at my credentials." "I said hands on the hood. You're making this very difficult for yourself." Agent Torres had no idea what he just walked into. In the next 72 hours, his badge would be taken away. His partner would be put on leave. Federal investigators would look at every arrest he ever made. The quiet woman he just pushed onto the hood of her car, she was Judge Maria Elena Rodriguez. She had been a federal immigration judge for 14 years. She had ruled on over 3,000 cases. She had spoken before Congress about immigration law. And Agent Torres, he had appeared in her courtroom 17 times in the past year alone. The dashcam recorded everything. Her judge robes sat in plain view, and the courthouse was already making calls. "Before I continue, let me ask you this. Have you ever been treated unfairly by someone in power? Tell me your story in the comments below." But Agent Torres had no idea who he just put in handcuffs. Her name was Maria Elena Rodriguez, the Honorable Maria Elena Rodriguez. She was a federal immigration judge in the Southern District Court. She went to Stanford Law School. She graduated in the top 10% of her class. Before becoming a judge, she worked as a federal prosecutor. She focused on immigration fraud cases. Judge Rodriguez had been on the bench for 14 years. In that time, she ruled on more than 3,000 cases. She was known for being fair. When the law said someone should be sent back, she followed the law. When someone deserved to stay, she gave them a chance. Both prosecutors and defense lawyers respected her. They called her tough but fair. They said she was the most prepared judge in the district. Here is what makes this even more interesting. Judge Rodriguez had written training guides for federal agents. She taught classes on how to do lawful stops at checkpoints. She literally wrote the rules these agents were supposed to follow. She was also a first-generation American. Her parents came to this country legally from Mexico. She grew up in the same border community she now served. On this Tuesday morning, she was doing what she did every day. She drove the same road to the same courthouse. She wore the same robes. She carried the same judge ID in her purse. She had 47 minutes until her first case. She would never make it. Now here is where it gets worse. Agent Marcus Torres had been with Border Patrol for 6 years. In that time, he built a reputation, but not the good kind. Torres was 34 years old. He worked at interior checkpoints on the highway. His partner was Agent Derek Williams, who was 29. Williams had only been on the job for 3 years. In 6 years, Torres had 14 formal complaints filed against him. Every single one involved Latino drivers. Every single one was dismissed. The agency said there was not enough proof. Let me tell you about some of these complaints. In 2021, Torres stopped a Latino doctor. He held him for 4 hours, even though the man had a valid passport. The complaint went nowhere. In 2022, Torres stopped the same car twice in 1 week. The driver was a city councilman. Torres claimed it was random. Nothing happened to him. In 2023, Torres handcuffed a Latina teacher in front of her students. They were on a school field trip. The case was settled quietly. Torres kept his job. Other agents had a nickname for him. They called him Checkpoint Charlie. It was not a compliment. His partner Williams had concerns. He later told his girlfriend he knew something was wrong, but he never spoke up. He stayed silent during stops. Torres learned one lesson from 6 years and 14 complaints. There were no consequences. Latino drivers did not fight back. They could not afford lawyers. They stayed quiet. But this time, Tors picked the wrong car. Type wrong target in the comments if you see where this is going. It was Tuesday, March 15th. The time was 7:42 in the morning. Highway 78 runs about 12 miles from the downtown federal courthouse. There is a checkpoint there. It is not at the actual border. It is called an interior checkpoint. The morning was clear. Traffic was light. It was a normal commute day. Judge Rodriguez drove this route every single day. She had passed through this checkpoint hundreds of times before. Usually, different agents were on duty. They would look at her judge ID and wave her through. Not this day. Tors was working primary inspection. He stood at the front of the checkpoint. His job was to look at each car and decide who to stop. Judge Rodriguez's silver car pulled up. Tors looked at her. He did not ask for documents. He signaled her to pull over for a secondary inspection. Here is something important. 3 cars came before hers. All of them had white drivers. All of them were waved through without any questions. Other people were there that morning. Tors' partner Williams stood nearby. 2 other agents worked the main checkpoint. 3 civilian drivers waited in cars behind the judge. All of them could see what was happening. And the cameras were rolling. The dashcam on Tors' car was on. The checkpoint security cameras were recording. Everything was being captured. If stories like this matter to you, hit that subscribe button right now. You will want to see how this ends. Tors walked up to the judge's window. He did not ask for her license first. He asked where she was going. The federal courthouse, she said. What do you do there? I work there. Tors laughed. Doing what? You clean there or something? No, I'm a judge. Here's my ID. Tors did not look at it. Sure you are. Step out of the vehicle. Judge Rodriguez stayed calm. She stepped out slowly. Officer, I'm a federal judge. My credentials are right here in my hand. Everyone has fake IDs, Tors said. Hands on the hood, now. This is completely improper. I have identification. Don't tell me my job. She put her hands on the hood. Tors began to pat her down. Williams, his partner, stood behind them. He shifted his weight. He looked uncomfortable, but he said nothing. I need to be in court in 40 minutes, Judge Rodriguez said. People are waiting for me. Tors laughed again. Court, you'll be lucky to see a cell. 10 minutes into this stop, things got worse. Tors pulled out his handcuffs. I'm detaining you. On what grounds? I've done nothing but cooperate. Suspicious behavior, inconsistent story. What's inconsistent? I'm a judge going to work, that's the truth. That's the inconsistent part. He put the handcuffs on her wrists. He placed her in the back of his patrol car, a federal judge in handcuffs on the side of an American highway. But people were watching. A teacher in the car behind started recording on her phone. A retired Marine got out of his car. What did she do? He asked. Mind your business, Tors said, or you're next. A nurse in another car quietly wrote down badge numbers. She noted the time. She captured everything. Williams, the partner, made brief eye contact with the judge. Then he looked away. He later said he knew something was wrong, but he froze. Here is what Tors did not know. The teacher's video was already uploading to the cloud. The retired Marine was the father of a military lawyer. The nurse had photographed every detail. And in the back of that patrol car, Judge Rodriguez was not scared. She was paying attention. Every word, every second, every violation. She knew exactly what was happening. Let me know in the comments, what would you do if this happened to you? Tors drove the judge to a regional processing center. The drive took 23 minutes. He never read her rights. He never explained the charges. On his radio, he said, got a live one, claims she's a judge. The dispatcher asked, a judge, did you check that? Tors replied, they all claim something. They arrived at 8:34 in the morning. Tors walked Judge Rodriguez inside. He tossed her purse on the counter. He never looked inside it. A processing officer picked up the purse. He opened it. He saw the judge ID. His face changed. He looked at Tors, then he quietly made a phone call. 5 minutes later, the shift supervisor walked in. He looked at the ID. His face went white. He pulled Tors aside. Do you know who this is? Tors shrugged. Some lady with a fake badge. That's Judge Rodriguez. She's assigned to this district. She handles immigration cases. Torres blinked. What? You've been in her courtroom, Torres, 17 times this year. Now let us talk about what was happening at the courthouse. At 8:30, Judge Rodriguez's courtroom was empty. The lawyers waited. The clerk tried calling her phone. No answer. At 9:00, the first hearing was officially delayed. At 9:15, the clerk called court security. At 9:22, the chief judge was told. At 9:30, U.S. Marshals were sent to find her. Back at the processing center, the supervisor made more calls. He confirmed who she was. Torres' face slowly changed. The truth was hitting him. He tried to explain. She was being suspicious. She wouldn't. The supervisor cut him off. She has testified before Congress. She trains federal agents. She's presided over your cases. Torres said nothing. The supervisor turned to Judge Rodriguez. Ma'am, I am so sorry. This should never have happened. She stayed calm. I would like my handcuffs removed now. The handcuffs came off at 9:38 in the morning. She had been detained for armed 2 hours. Her first words were simple. I will need badge numbers, names, and your supervisor's supervisor. By 10:00, federal marshals arrived at the processing center. By 10:15, the checkpoint commander was there. By 10:30, every piece of video from that morning was locked up as federal evidence. Torres was finally starting to understand. He had not just made a bad stop. He had violated the civil rights of a sitting federal judge, on camera, in a district where she controlled his future. One supportive moment in all this mess came from the supervisor. He personally drove Judge Rodriguez to the courthouse. He apologized the whole way. He said he was ashamed of his agency that day. It was a small thing, but it mattered. Type accountability in the comments if you think Torres got what he deserved. The federal response came fast. U.S. Marshals secured all the video footage within hours. The FBI Civil Rights Division was notified the same day. Border Patrol Internal Affairs opened an investigation. The chief judge called an emergency meeting. Now let us look at what the evidence showed. The dashcam footage was clear. Torres never once looked at the judge's credentials. She offered them multiple times. He ignored her every time. The checkpoint camera showed something else. 3 white drivers passed through right before her. None of them were stopped. None of them were questioned. Only the Latina woman was pulled aside. Witness videos from 3 different phones captured parts of the stop. Radio recordings saved Torres' comments. Processing center footage showed the supervisor's shock and the judge's calm strength. Now here is where Torres' story fell apart. Torres claimed the judge acted suspicious, but the video showed her being calm, polite, and cooperative. Torres claimed she made inconsistent statements, but she said the same thing every time. She was a judge going to work. That was true. Torres claimed he followed standard procedure, but 3 white drivers were waved through without any questions. Torres claimed he could not verify her ID, but he never even looked at it. The consequences came quickly. Day 1, Torres was put on leave. His badge was taken away. Day 1, Williams was also put on leave. Day 2, the checkpoint commander was moved to a different job. Day 2, the regional director gave a formal apology. Day 3, investigators began looking at every arrest Torres ever made. The legal system also got moving. The State Bar Association was told that one of their judges had been detained. The Federal Judicial Committee met. The ACLU reached out to Judge Rodriguez. The Department of Justice Civil Rights Division opened its own investigation. Judge Rodriguez took immediate action. She removed herself from all cases involving Torres, Williams, or their unit. She gave a formal statement to investigators. The next day, she went back to work. Her courtroom was packed. Everyone wanted to see her. She did not make any public statements at first. She did not need to. The evidence spoke for itself. If you believe public officials should face real consequences, hit subscribe. We cover stories like this every week. Within 72 hours, 2 careers were basically over, but the real consequences were just beginning because someone had uploaded that witness video, and it was about to spread everywhere. Here is how fast this story spread. At 11, 5:00 in the morning on day 1, the teacher uploaded her video to Twitter. Her caption said, "Just watched Border Patrol handcuff a woman who said she was a judge." By 1:00 that afternoon, the video had 50,000 views. Journalists were asking questions. By 4:00, local news confirmed the story. The headline read, "Detained woman was a federal judge." By 6:00, national networks picked up the story. CNN, MSNBC, and Fox all covered it. By 9:00 that night, the hashtag Judge Rodriguez was trending across the country. By midnight, the video had 2.3 million views across all platforms. By day 2, the story went international. BBC, Reuters, and Al Jazeera all reported on it. People had a lot to say. One immigration lawyer wrote, "If they'll do this to a judge, imagine what happens to everyone else." A civil rights leader said, "This is what we've been saying for years. Now it's finally on camera." A former federal prosecutor said, "These are career-ending violations, multiple ones." A Latino advocacy group said, "She's not the first, she's just the first they couldn't silence." The media coverage was huge. Local stations ran the story all day. National networks brought in legal experts. Legal websites wrote long pieces breaking down every violation. Even international news framed this as a failure of the American justice system. Official statements came out. Border Patrol said they were taking the claims seriously. The Department of Justice said they opened an inquiry. The federal court system said they had full confidence in Judge Rodriguez. Torres did not speak publicly. His union gave a basic statement defending him, but he deleted all his social media accounts. Screenshots were already saved. And those 14 earlier complaints against Torres, they started showing up online. People who had been ignored for years were finally being heard. Share this video if you think more people need to see this story. Drop a comment telling me what you think about how fast this spread. Now let us talk about what happened next. The consequences were serious. The FBI Civil Rights Division led the criminal investigation. Torres faced possible charges under federal law. The charge is called deprivation of rights under color of law. In simple terms, it means using your government power to take away someone's rights. Investigators also started looking at the whole checkpoint. They wanted to know if this was a pattern. Now here is what happened to everyone involved. Torres was fired after a 6-week investigation. He was not allowed to quit first. Williams, his partner, was suspended. He later quit while still being investigated. The checkpoint commander was forced to retire early. The regional director was moved to another post. His career was over. 3 supervisors who had ignored earlier complaints were put under review. Judge Rodriguez filed a federal lawsuit. She claimed her Fourth Amendment rights were violated. That is the right against unfair searches. She also claimed racial discrimination and false arrest. She named Torres, Williams, Border Patrol, and the Department of Homeland Security. Here is something important that came out during the lawsuit. All 14 earlier complaints against Torres were allowed as evidence. This showed a clear pattern over years. The investigation found some shocking things. Internal emails showed supervisors joking about how aggressive Torres was. Training records showed Torres scored the lowest on bias training in his whole unit. A study of his stops found he pulled over Latino drivers 7 times more often than white drivers. Text messages between Torres and other agents had racist language. Want to know how much they paid? I will tell you right now. The exact amount was kept private, but news sources said it was in the high 6 figures. That means hundreds of thousands of dollars. But money was not the only result. Border Patrol had to change how they run checkpoints. They now have new rules about recording stops. They have to write down why they stop each person. They had to add civil rights training with outside oversight. Here is where Torres ended up. Fired, banned from ever working in federal law enforcement again, facing federal civil rights charges. 3 of his old victims settled their cases. Others are thinking about filing again. He got divorced during the investigation. He moved out of state. 14 complaints in 6 years, all ignored. 1 stop of the wrong person, everything collapsed. But Judge Rodriguez was not finished. She had something important to say. 6 weeks after that terrible morning, Judge Rodriguez spoke publicly. She gave her remarks at a conference for judges. She talked about how it felt to be in handcuffs. In that moment, my credentials meant nothing. My education meant nothing. My years of service meant nothing. I was just a Latina woman on the side of the road. She talked about the shame of it, the assumptions people made about her. She said her elderly parents were scared when they heard what happened. Then she talked about how this changed her as a judge. I've presided over thousands of cases. I've always believed our system could be fair. Now I understand what the people in my courtroom feel when they describe these stops. Seeing it from this side has changed me. I hope it makes me better at my job. She had a message for her community. If this happened to me, with all my credentials, imagine what happens to people without resources. To everyone who filed complaints that went nowhere, I hear you now. I believe you. She also spoke to law enforcement. Most of you serve honorably, but you must hold each other accountable. The badge is a responsibility, not a permission slip. She said what she wants to see change: independent oversight of complaints, required recording at checkpoints, real consequences before things go viral. She ended with this: I didn't want to become a symbol, but if my experience means one less person gets handcuffed because of how they look, then something good came from the worst morning of my career. But here is the hard truth. This case only got attention because of who the victim was. Judge Rodriguez had power, she had credentials, she had connections, she understood the legal system. The video went viral because people were shocked a judge was treated this way. But what about the 14 people who complained before her? What about everyone else stopped at that checkpoint? They did not have law degrees. They did not have cameras following their story. This case proves the system can work when powerful people demand it. The question is whether it works for everyone else. So let me ask you, should it take arresting a federal judge before anyone pays attention to years of complaints? Should 14 people be ignored while the system waits for something to go viral? Should your credentials decide whether your rights get respected, or should those rights belong to everyone equally? Because if we only act when the victim has power, if we only investigate when cameras are rolling, if we only fix things after the story spreads online, then we have not fixed anything. We have just gotten better at damage control. Agent Torres was not special. He was not one bad apple. He was what happens when a system stops counting complaints. He was what happens when no one faces consequences. Comment below if you believe checkpoint practices need outside oversight. Tell me yes or no, and explain why you think so. If you believe stories like this matter, hit that subscribe button right now. We are going to keep following what happens. We are going to keep asking hard questions. We are going to keep demanding that the system work for everyone, not just people with power. Judge Rodriguez went back to her bench. She still believes in the system. She just knows now that the system needs to believe in everyone equally. The question is whether we do too. This is not just about one agent or one judge. It is about all of us and the system we are willing to accept. See you in the next one.